Hello, I am Berke İsmail Erhan Asıl, currently studying at Bilkent University and my major is computer science. Today I will be presenting my Physics 101 project, which is calculating the period in mass spring systems. In this experiment, I examined the factors that change period in mass spring systems. In this experiment, my aim was to figure out which factors the period depends on and also to reveal the reasons of errors if it occurs. The materials I used in this experiment were a ruler, two identical springs, a few different masses, stopwatch, and a retort strand to hold the springs. First, I started my experiment by calculating the spring constant, because the spring constant of the spring I took from the laboratory was unknown. First, I attached a 400 gram mass to the tip of my spring. With the help of ruler, I stretched 10 centimeters and calculated the time it took for the spring to oscillate 10 times. And thus, I found the period. Then I determined the spring constant of my spring using my main equation, which is 2 pi square root m over k. Then I repeated the same experiment using different masses, and I took note of the results that I found. My observations in the first part of my experiment showed that the period increases in direct proportional to the square root of mass, as it is seen from the equation. And in addition, to show that the amount of stretch of the spring is not related to the period, I pulled the spring by 5 centimeters and repeated the process. As I expected, I observed that the same period occurred with a 10 centimeter stretching. In the second part of my project, I connected the springs in series and parallel respectively to change my spring constant. I observed that when I connected the spring constant in series, spring constant decreased by half and therefore my period increased. On the other hand, when I connected springs in parallel, my spring constant doubled and this caused the period to decrease, especially when I used little mass and the parallel spring. Since the period in this part was very short, it was really difficult for me to measure it. And as in the first experiment, I recorded the values too. Finally, I calculated my error amounts and saw that all error amounts were less than 5%. Many factors were effective of the occurrence of that error. But the main reasons are I didn't know the exact value of my spring constant, which I had to calculate by myself, and the other reason is the tiny masses that I ignored after 2 decimals were effective in such sensitive experiments.